so let's carry on with our official business. We do have a quorum. Call the meeting to order, and we'll salute this little flag here. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for which
it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dan Knutson, there he is.
There's Mr. Knutson. Did you run out of razor blades? You look different.
Me?
Unmute yourself. Go ahead, grunt or say something.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, I am unmuted.
Okay, all right, so let's jump into the agenda. The minutes from the last meeting of March, February 22nd. I have a couple of minor comments. Does anybody else have anything?
Not yet.
Nobody ever does, okay. All right, so a point of clarification. Does anybody want to jump in? Okay. A couple.
You're much more thorough than we are.
Yeah, okay. On page 4, in the middle of the page, and there's a sentence that says, Mr. O'Gurk asked about the role of Green Bank and asked if there is a market for virtual net metering projects. That's not exactly right. What I was trying to ask is, now that there is no net metering incentives or no net metering program, are projects still being developed? Right? I think, would you agree that that was at least that's what I was intending to ask, because that was the killer. That was what killed a lot of solar projects, was the absence of net metering programs, which is what we use to put the solar project in at the landfill. So I don't know if you could clarify that for me. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. And then on page 5, under the storm Isaiah's cost recovery, which I think it's Isaiah's, but everybody says Isaiah's or whatever. I would like it to say in the second sentence, where it says now a group discussion is sued about Eversource's lack of communication and lack of response time. I would like to see it say apparent lack of communication and lack of response time, because I'm not 100% sure that that was a fact. But you can override me if you'd like. If you really, I mean, if the commission thinks that they were definitely ill-prepared and didn't communicate effectively and quickly enough, I don't necessarily believe that. I think I've been saying this. I'd like the third party or the independent party to conduct their investigation and come back. And if they in fact are found to be negligible or liable in some way, then fine. But I think it's a little presumptuous for us to make that conclusion as a task force or as a commission.
I'm trying to record what was said, and I'm really not allowed to change content, but I understand that there were varying opinions, so I don't see, I mean, I'll leave it to the commission.
Chris can weigh in on that.
I think I concur with the chairman in that, I mean, some of those topics did come up, but I think the drive towards the letter really was two things. I concur with the chairman's suggestion on better encapsulating that content, because this is about the letter. There was some discussion about, alleged lack of, preparedness and response times. I would also just suggest too that when I raise this, it's just to be fully clear and transparent. It was reported that Eversource is not preparing to pass along the cost, but they're expecting to get approval to pass along the cost. It's really to that we were responding to.
Yes.
So can we be really clear with where we want the change? So I'm going to put apparent lack
Yeah, apparent would be, or
Lack of
alleged, apparent.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
I think that protects us because I
Right.
don't think we have the right to make that conclusion. We all have the right to
Absolutely.
our opinions, but I think the third party or the independent investigator really should make that conclusion. And I don't know
Okay.
that they have or not. I don't know where we are on that. Does anybody know? Has there been an investigation?
There is an open docket at Pura, and the letter that we had discussed would be basically submitted to Pura as part of that file.
Okay, good. Ryan, did you have something?
I was going to say, I believe we should wait until Pura concludes their investigation. I'm sure they're party to all the information that we don't have. And I know that we see the unhappiness of the residents of Cheshire and how it was handled. That doesn't necessarily mean that was the wrong way to be handled. So I would want to see the results of that before we can decide how we feel. But expressing that we're unhappy with the outcome, I think is an acceptable place to go from regardless. So whether or not rule that Eversource was incompetent or unprepared, us being unhappy with the response is still an acceptable response.
Yes, I agree with that.
And I think too, I think we probably are going to cover some of that, but I think for purposes of right now, we're just wanting to make sure that the minutes reflect accurately what we talked about last time. And I think, Ryan, I think that's, the point's well taken, but I think we just want to make sure that the minutes reflect that appropriately. So yes. I think in the very first line, it would read, Mr. Smith addressed the group and explained that Eversource Energy is expecting to be granted authority to pass along costs they incurred. A group discussed and ensued about Eversource's alleged lack of communication and lack of response time. And then third to last line, and asked that the ratepayers not incur these costs if it is determined that they were negligent.
I would agree with that. Anybody have any further? So, Ann, you've got that, right? All we're trying to do is not make it seem like we're rushing to judgment. It's not our role. There's an investigation going on. Let's see how that plays out. And as Ryan says, we could say we're unhappy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're negligent. Let's let it run its course. Anybody have anything else?
I would think it stands to reason that if he's willing to make those comments to the shareholders, they're very confident they're going to be ruled. It's going to rule in their favor, and that they're going to be able to pass those costs along. Otherwise, I don't think he would have made those comments in front of shareholders. So, I mean, again, I don't know what bar they have to clear. I don't know how high it is or how low it is, but I don't think that he would come out and then look to be embarrassed by having them reverse what he had said. So, it would be foolish of us to then say that they're guilty to have them be ruled not guilty,
Good enough. Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes as amended from somebody, from Ryan, seconded by Chris? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I am not aware of any communications from an external source. Is anybody else? Did anybody get any? Dan, you might know better than anybody else. Dan Bombaro. Have we seen anything addressed to the Energy Commission from the public? No. Okay. All right. Let's go into item 6A, energy efficiency projects. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I have to add something to the new business, although I guess it's not really new business, but it has to do with the M&V report for the performance contract from Amoresco. Dan, I don't know if you're following up on it, but this or last year's M&V report is due. I'm not sure what year it is now. Is it 5 or 6? Do you know?
Not offhand. George would be the one to know what year we're in on that. I could circle back with him and see.
Okay, well, as you all know, I work for Amoresco. I was told by the manager of the M&V group which is up in Massachusetts, that the person who was doing these yearly annual reviews with Rich Clavette is no longer with the company. But they did say that last year, Richard Clavette held it a virtual review, but that has to be done sometime this month. And I'm trying to facilitate finding somebody else to do it in the absence, because they can't just stop doing it because the guy left. So can you reach out to Richard Clavette, who never comes to these meetings anymore? I guess we expressed.
I'd be inclined to believe at this point I'm representing both town sides.
You're representing the town side. What about the?
I'm in communication with Rich on any of the matters that are for Energy Commission. So I'll bring this up to him and see where that stands if in fact he's been contacted by anybody. I'd assume that internally they're going to be assigning somebody to do something to which they're
yeah. Okay. So maybe Dan, you and I can talk offline.
Yeah.
I want to.
We could connect maybe tomorrow or Wednesday,
okay.
And we can try to set something up.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's not really under new business. It's part of what used to be, the biggest energy efficiency project we've ever seen, which was the townwide performance contract. And I believe it's the year 6 report. It's due sometime in May. Amoresco wants to complete it in April sometime. So Dan, I'll get you in touch with whomever
it is.
Yeah,
yep.
Good.
That'd be fine.
All right. So the first item here is under energy efficiency projects is the McClary Athletic Complex, the lighting retrofit. Anything happening with that?
Yeah, they anticipate being substantially complete by the end of the week. They actually powered everything up over this past weekend. Rich was happy with the outcome. I'm sure you'll be when you're out there reffing on the fields. Yeah. He said it's a great difference in the lighting. They were able to get everything powered up. They're waiting for a few components that marry into the whole system, at which point they're going to be aiming this week. A couple different nights. I think they're planning for this week to do the aiming. And then at that point, as built of the lumens plan to show that they're getting the appropriate spreads.
Awesome. That's great news. That's really, really great news. That's a winner all the way around. It's going to give you better quality light, longer lasting light. The operating cost is going to be a lot less. It's just it's an expensive project, but it's going to pay back in terms of reduced maintenance and longer life expectancy and all that. So, but from my perspective, the quality of the light was.
I think he said it's going to be close to 60% brighter than it was. I think he said the measure when they ran it just initially over the weekend at center field. This is obviously before aiming and balancing. They were like something like 60 candles. Major League Baseball field is close to 100. So in perspective, it's pretty bright.
Yeah. And after 2 years, the old lighting depreciated down to like 20% or something.
Right, of what it started at, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good news. That's good news. All right. How about item 2, the HES program for residential buildings? Dan Knutson must have something to say about that.
I did get new numbers from the I Heart My Home.
Okay.
There's
which
now,
is a separate item, but it's kind of tied in with the HES program. So go ahead.
Yeah. So there's now 17 homes in Cheshire that have signed up. The I Heart My Home is up to 230 different residences.
How many?
130 buildings. So a lot of multifamilies.
Did you say 130?
130 buildings and 230 residences.
Okay.
So it sounds like Cheshire slowed down a little bit. I mean, we've added 5 since over the last month.
Yeah.
Maybe we can put it on the town Facebook page again. And
yeah, who got it on? Who? It appeared in the Cheshire Herald a number of times. So I'm going to say, I don't know, 4 times, 5 times. Who put it on the website, on the Cheshire Forum?
Walt did most recently, I think, and I did. My wife did it earlier.
Can you do it again, Walt?
Yeah, something similar. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you did the last time worked well. And Dan agreed, and I don't know if it was what you did, Walt, or what Mrs. Knutson did. But...
You included the links for I Heart My Home, and
okay.
I don't think I did, but I could.
Can you 2 guys work together offline and get something out there as soon as possible? This does have a sunset, but I don't know what the end date really is. Do you have any idea what it expires sometime? Not sure what the date is. Do you know, Dan?
I don't remember. It wasn't until the middle of the year, and there was talk that they were going to extend it. So
okay, all right. Okay. All right, under benchmarking, we have 4 items. The first one is, George, are you on? George, Romania, I see your name.
I'm sorry, I'm on.
Okay.
I just had an emergency furnace thing happen, so I apologize.
Not a problem. We're talking about, in general, the Energy Star Portfolio Manager database. You were going to try to get fossil fuel in there, oil, propane. Did you get those that data into the Portfolio Manager database?
So I guess I'm a little confused. I thought I was going to be receiving some. I guess did Dan said that he sent something about fossil fuels, but I didn't find it in there unless I'm not looking in the right spot.
I sent twice. I sent two different emails that should have had attachments to them. They were for number 2 heating oil is what was included in that.
All right, let me look, and do you mind if we circle back to this so I could look at it?
Sure.
Yeah, if not, we could connect, George, and I can either get you hard copies or I could resend them again.
All right, let me see if I could search through here.
Okay. Second item is the follow-up to what I discussed last meeting about the webinar. There's a 3-part series on Portfolio Manager, how to set it up, how to use the results of the Portfolio Manager program. And if you click on the link that's in the on the agenda, it'll bring you to the slides from the February 24th meeting. Now, you may or may not have seen that. If you're interested, you would have seen it. I thought it was a pretty good presentation, and it aligns perfectly with what we've been talking about, our needing to do with what's in our database. I mean, there's no point in putting all this data in, even though it's easy to get it in there nowadays because you can just download it, unless you do something with it. And that was addressed in part 2, and part 3 is tomorrow at 1 o'clock. If you want to register for that, you can click on that link that's on the agenda, and that'll bring you to a registration page. It doesn't cost anything. It starts at 1 and it probably lasts an hour to an hour and a half. And that's when they get into the real nuts and bolts of what can you do with what the Portfolio Manager gives back after you've got all the data in there. I'll be tuning into it at 1 o'clock. If anybody else is interested, I would really urge you to, I know that, y'all can't just take whatever time. I mean, maybe you just can't get away from work or whatever, but it's it's been a good series, and I think you would get something out of it.
I'm going to try to join, Mr. Chairman. I have a conflict at 1 o'clock, so I might be joining late. I hope it's still valuable, but I will try. I'm also in the busiest time of my work.
Good
experience,
but I'm glad to hear that. You know, and you can get in and you can get out if it seems like it's not really going to click with you, or if you just can't spend the hour or even a half an hour. It's worthwhile to just get in there, poke around, and listen to what the presenters are saying and some of the other users. And if it's not for you, then you get back out again. And they'll probably have the slides available after this session as well. So if you can't see it live, I'll link you into the slides when they send them out after the meeting. Okay, publicity, outreach, education outreach. I have not seen any letters to the editor or any articles. Has anybody else? I think they stopped putting the Hess thing in the paper, but I didn't see it this week. So, okay, clean energy, opportunities for additional carports, PV arrays, and a detailed discussion about the solar map. You know, we've been saying for several months now that we're looking for other opportunities for carports, but that the absence of incentive programs and net metering and all that has made it difficult. I would hope that the Green Bank would come back to us with some prospective projects. Now, you all know, I think, that I sent a list that Dan Bombaro got out of our portfolio manager. I tweaked it a little bit, Dan, but I sent a copy back to you and I think to everybody else, identifying what we feel are potential solar project candidates with addresses and the names of the facilities and all the schools were on there, I think, and many municipal buildings. I got an acknowledgement from Emily Basham that she received it and that they would start their, what they call their desktop analysis, which they have some kind of a Google Earth imaging program that they could quickly zoom in on these addresses to see if they look like they might be geographically compatible with the solar installation. But that was just a couple days ago, so I haven't got much else. Did anybody else get? Dan, did you get any?
Nothing following that, no.
Okay.
Rich, did you get a call from Tim White?
Did I get a call from him?
Yeah.
No.
He called me. I was in the car. He called me and asked for your phone number, and I texted to him. He had called. We had a really bad connection, but I think what he said was that the school system has hired a consultant to put together something like a solar map.
That was something in one of the emails I sent to Rich that was reflected, is they did hire a firm. Offhand, I can't remember what the name of the firm was. They've actually already done an analysis. I think it was subsequently presented to the board. I don't believe that they're planning on taking any action on that in light of the modernization. On top of that, I think some of the suggested locations were, and I think, and Tim could speak to it better, less than desirable is what the takeaway in the description I got was.
I don't know what that consultant came back with. I don't know if there was a cost associated. I was a little surprised that they would go ahead and do that without letting us know. Not that they really need our permission, but it's nice to communicate. We've been very communicative with them, so I think I would have expected something in return. But anyway, they, like Dan said, they evidently have been working with some consultant to see if there's any opportunities. for all we know, it could have been, you know, a completely complementary analysis. It may have been a developer that decided that they would go out and try to find some suitable locations to install. But we'll see what Green Bank comes back with. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but it sounded like they were going to move on it pretty quickly. So as soon as I find out, I'll let you guys know.
If on the clean energy, I don't know if this is old business or if this would qualify as something new, but I had a conversation, I think on Friday, and I have to follow up for some more details, but there's a colleague of mine who, you know, kind of works in the same government space that I do, that was working on some zero emission or electric buses for schools. And if we're talking about clean energy and other opportunities for that type of thing, is that something that would be worthwhile for me to explore a little bit more? I know that stuff gets hyper complicated with, you know, bus contracts with the school districts and things like that. But I know, I think one of our regional education service centers did something similar. It might be worth exploring if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say. I didn't know if you were going to refer to this email that I saw today, but it comes from Adelaide Kepfer. You know her, Chris? She's from Wallingford.
No, I don't know.
Adelaide, A-D-E-L-H, Adelaide Kepfer. And she's part of the Connecticut Energy Network, the Google group thing that I sometimes refer to. And it's kind of interesting because it's kind of a, you know, you get on these, you get these email chains and everybody's got to say something and you end up with 15, 20 emails. But somebody started an email asking, why is Connecticut's electricity prices the highest in the United States, the continental United States? But this article was actually published in 2019, so I don't think we've gone down since. So it's probably pretty much the same. And so they said, well, and I guess, and so, you know, they're always trying to poke Eversource in the eye, and so they're saying, well, you know, Eversource has got, you know, 15 excuses why that's true. Why are the electricity prices so high? But Adelaide says that she lives in Wallingford. And you know this, Chris, from being a Wallingford resident, that the electric prices in Wallingford are substantially less than Eversource. Now, I mean, I've heard that. I've never really experienced it. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to just take it for face value. And I think you've said that's true. But she says she only pays 11.5 cents per kilowatt hour. I don't know. Does that mean all in everything? Would you say that that's a reasonable price, 11.5 cents?
You know,
in Cheshire, we pay 20 cents or twice that.
Yeah. I wish I remembered what I was paying, but, you know, just from an anecdotal standpoint, you know, granted the apartment I had was about 1,000 square feet, but my electricity bill, and including electric heat, was never more than $150.
Yeah.
Including electric heat in the winter.
I don't have I mean, I cut off the chain just to print this out because all I was interested in was in Adelaide's comments here, but.
David Gavin's coming into the meeting.
Oh, good. Evidently somebody from somewhere out Midwest moved to Connecticut and is paying twice or three times what they were paying out in, I don't know, Nebraska, where I think he was living previously. So it gets people all riled up. Why are Connecticut rates so much higher? And they blame it on our reliance on gas, natural gas, which is more expensive than coal, which is more expensive than, and, you know, even though we have a lot of nuclear power, I think it's 43% of our supply is nuclear. The price of power is based on natural gas. And
right, nuclear only has to bid they only have to beat natural gas. I mean,
right. And
when they deregulated, they thought, oh, you know, it'll bring those prices down. Instead, nuclear went up.
Right, because it's the way they price, and I can't remember the name of the model, but it's sort of like last in, first out. I mean, the last price to come in is the price that everybody can charge, right? So even though you might only have to pay. I don't want to make up numbers. I'm not going to go into that, but anyway, what I was going to say is what Adelaide's trying to say in her email is that in Wallingford, since they only pay 11.5 cents a kilowatt hour, there aren't many solar projects because it's really, really hard to show a cost benefit on solar panels when the price of power is as low as it is at 11.5 cents. Makes sense, right? I mean, so in a sense, he says, tongue in cheek, sometimes I wish our rates were a little higher, so they could get more clean energy projects, renewable energy projects.
I'd also like to mention that Wallingford doesn't meet the RPS, so it's dirty power. They just buy the cheapest.
Yeah, so and that's probably why she's a little bit annoyed, because it's hard to get renewable clean energy projects going in an area that has
I'm
low
not just talking
rates.
about that. I'm talking about the right now, you know, our RPS for Eversource is like 25% has to be green.
Yeah.
Wallingford has, you know, 0.
Really? How do they get away with that?
Because they're not part of it. They're not.
Yeah, but aren't they emitting? They are a community in Connecticut. There's got to be some kind of a clean air standard, or
they never sold their lines and their whole infrastructure. They don't have to. They're not part of the group.
I know that they're not part of Eversource or UI, but they're regulated by Pure, aren't they? They must be regulated. I don't know.
They are regulated, but I think Dan is correct. They do have some different rules that they play under. I'm pretty sure that is correct. I mean, I can look into it a little bit more, but I think the point is they pay less. They also don't have nearly as much grid reliability issues, and I can speak both, you know, from personal experience and also having been on the Energy Commission in Wallingford. You know, they don't have the same number of outages and other problems that we have. The price is one thing. I think it's a broader policy that folks way above our head make, but I don't know how they interact with ISO and all that, or whether or not they even do. But
yeah, but you know, we've had this conversation, and I think it's great, Chris, that you're on our commission, because you could bring that other side. But I get on 91 there in Meriden driving towards New Haven, and I pass this big old billboard, and it says Meriden. Well, I mean, Wallingford, the cheapest power in Connecticut.
Yeah, and
there should be a billboard right next to it that says Wallingford, the dirtiest power in Connecticut. You know,
businesses move to Wallingford just for the power. You know, if you got a business like a printing company or something that uses a lot of power, it's a big expense and it's a big savings.
Yeah, but how do they get away with it? I mean, they should be part of the filthy five. I mean, it's almost like they can reap the advantages of having low power prices, but they're not paying for the pollution.
Yeah, it's they also don't get some of the benefits, you know, like the energy efficiency and stuff. That might have changed recently, as far as I know. But there's 4 communities. It's Wallingford, Groton, Norwalk. Is it Norwalk? There's one other one that I can't remember that's part of this CMEC, as they call it, and they're like the municipal utilities that kind of operate outside of some of the.
I think it's like Norfolk. It's not Norwalk.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think Norwalk has a CLNP.
Yeah, they're
generator. Yeah.
Yeah, Norfolk. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Adelaide is saying she can't get clean renewable power into her town because the prices are too cheap. Okay. So the next item is the PBC projects, and specifically the Cheshire Police Station locker room improvements. And Dan, you sent out the prints, right? They're the plans and specs. Did everybody get those? I mean, you didn't send just to me, did you?
I think I might have just sent them to you to share with the commission.
Okay.
I could send them to the whole group tomorrow. Yeah. What I did, I sent you both the plans, the specifications, along with Ann was kind enough to put that together a memo sheet. If you guys would like to use that as a basis for forming a memo with any and all comments that could be presented to the PBC at next month's meeting, which I believe is April 28th.
Right. So between now and maybe a week before that meeting, we should.
Yeah, Ann likes to what would be the last date to make sure that went out in the packet for PBC?
It's the Monday before the 20th, so it's the week before. I don't have my calendar in front of me.
The 28th, so it would be the 19th. If you could get, just as a group, one memo together that would reflect the commission's recommendations for the PBC to review at that their next meeting there.
Did Chris, Dan, Dave, Gavin, Walt, did you get the plans and specs?
I didn't see them. I don't think
so.
I'll send them out to the whole group.
Do that. Okay.
Yep.
Good. And then David Gavin is the expert at reviewing those things. But Dave, can you take a close look? Are you frozen, Dave?
He looks like he's frozen.
He's muted and he looks frozen.
He's frozen.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Move, David. Whoa. He's like, what about that? Okay. So Dave Gavin would be definitely, we got to get him on the distribution because he usually takes the time to carefully review those things.
It's a big plan set.
Okay. Anything on tree trimming?
Yeah, I got a couple notes that came through from Eversource. They're going to be doing some customer-focused trimming in Reservoir Broad Swamp area with some additional work on Surrey and Williamsburg Road. And they'll also be doing some Southern Corridor, Southern Route 10 corridor work for the spring and summer of this year.
Ian, what was it that I had wanted to put under new business that had to do with reliability that you said that?
The Pure draft.
Oh, the Pure draft. Okay, we got to talk about that. Where is that? That's not even on here, is it?
Well, I forwarded it out along with the packet as a separate document that everybody should have.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was attached.
It was like one of the last pages of your packet there.
All right, so
as a formality, you'll need to have somebody make a motion to add it into new business.
Or just put it under energy reliability, right? Is that what you were
Because
suggesting?
it wasn't on the initial agenda, it has to be motioned in.
All right, somebody make a motion. Ryan's going to make a motion to put the Pure letter in, or a draft letter, under what?
New business.
Well, it's not really new business though, because we talked about
the letter. You did speak about it previously, but because the letter itself wasn't included, it's just a matter of, to bring it up in discussion as a matter of course. It's just a motion to discuss the letter as drafted by Chris.
Okay, so that would go under new business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Any second to that? Anybody want? Okay, Dan Knutson will second that. And is there any further discussion before we agree? Okay, Chris.
Yeah, let me just, if I could just frame this on the on the letter. I think I really tried to capture what we talked about, the spirit of discussion that we talked about last month, where we made sure that we didn't make any definitive statements that weren't factual. The whole idea here is that a day or two before our last meeting, I saw these comments in the press where the CEO had expressed to the shareholders that he has an expectation that some cost recovery for these storms would be allowed. I found that a little bit troubling, kind of, a little bit cart before the horse, given that there's an open docket to determine if there was any negligence or malfeasance or anything like that. That coupled with some of the other stuff that we said, I thought it was appropriate, or the other stuff that we discussed, I thought it was appropriate to put in a letter citing our concern over some of those comments, particularly given some of the track record that has taken place over the last several years, including intervention by the state legislature in times past. And so, this seems to be kind of history repeating itself. However, I was very careful to articulate that while we do certainly support cost recovery efforts from ratepayers for infrastructure, for upkeep, for storm response, et cetera, I felt that it was appropriate not to support such efforts if there were negligent activities or ill preparation from the utility. And I think the letter encompasses that. And I'm happy to discuss any edits that you might have, but I do hope that that you all endorse putting something like this in. Should this be approved and sent in, it would just go to PURA, and it would be entered into the record as part of the docket that's currently open investigating Eversource.
Okay, let me make a couple of comments. First of all, I thought the letter was extremely well intentioned and well written. I liked the latter part of the letter particularly because it's there that you said that we would, how do I phrase it, that we acknowledge essentially that we're relying on the investigation to be completed, and if it's found that they are negligent or remiss or ill-prepared, then we clearly want to express our opinion on that. So at the beginning, I was thinking, I'm not quite sure I like this, but you wrapped it up really well. It came out, I thought it came out really, really well. Dan Knutson had a suggestion earlier today to tie in the programs that other states are using in a regulatory sense, performance-based
revenue.
Was it PBR?
Yeah.
Performance-based rate revenue making. And I don't know if you saw that or not, Chris. I don't think it would be very difficult to incorporate or to somehow link it in. I don't want to make the letter unnecessarily lengthy, but it might stand. I don't know, maybe you have some ideas of how to incorporate or how to link it together.
I would just like it to be mentioned, especially in that I think my fear with Eversource is that they're not incentivized to rein in the costs or do it all that efficiently. I mean, they're getting the cost plus. So the more they spend, they're expecting to be reimbursed for everything they spend plus their added profit. And so performance-based revenue would, or performance incentive mechanisms can help change that dynamic. One thing I was thinking about the letter is that, let me pull it back up. where it says towards the end, continued alleged poor preparation and planning for forecasted severe storms. And also, I would like to include in that sentence maybe supervision of storm response. Because I think that's a big part of their role. But maybe after that, somewhere we could just say maybe Pura should be looking at changing the incentive and examining the possibility of using PBR or PIM, performance incentive mechanisms, to improve performance in the future, like our surrounding states are.
Chris, did you see this email that
I saw it as I logged on earlier this evening, right when we logged on, and somebody mentioned that Dan had sent the email. So, and I am somewhat familiar at a very high level on this idea, but I'm not fully, steeped in it. While I certainly don't oppose the idea of it, I'm wondering if, Dan, does this make actually more sense to almost break off and do a separate one under it? Because the docket that we're submitting this to is really about the specific to the storm and the response. And I wonder if, while I certainly agree with you that this is something that should be looked at, and I think it certainly could be within our purview to suggest that, I'm wondering if that almost would be better as a standalone at some time in the future, rather than trying to shoehorn it into here. While I don't think they're mutually exclusive, I wonder if we might end up with a better product on it if we were to break this off into two.
I could see that as well. What is there a deadline for getting the letter to Pura? Not really.
I mean, I'm not sure what the timeline is for them to render a decision on it. Last I checked, when I sent this in last week, the docket was still open. I believe it's still open, probably would be for a little while. I imagine we could probably I'm just not sure. If they render a decision in the next 2 weeks, we miss the opportunity. But I don't think we missed the opportunity to advocate for a PBR type system. I mean, because this docket I don't think is looking at their structured regulatory authority, rather whether or not they were at fault during any of the storm issues. I mean, I suppose I'm fine either way. I guess I would just kick that back to you, Dan, if you think, if you'd be more inclined to want to do a separate one that's a little bit more in depth on PBR, or if you still are interested in trying to kind of squeeze this in here somewhere.
I guess storm response is only a small part of PBR in general. I mean, I mean, for that small part, wouldn't bother me to include it. Like, this might have been a good thing to have to help evaluate a storm response, but I'm not sure.
I think I would agree with Chris that we're at the point now where we could launch that letter tomorrow. We get it into Pura. We don't have to worry about any deadlines. They're not mutually exclusive, but I think we probably get a lot more mileage out of treating the PBR as a separate entity rather than trying to link the two. They are linkable for sure, but PBR is much more comprehensive and expansive than this little storm, not little storm, but the most recent storm problem or storm response problem. So I guess I would be in favor of keeping them separate and probably getting a lot more bang for the buck by doing so. But anybody else have any comments or?
you know, I think I tend to agree, but I want to make sure that I understand you, Dan, fully, because I actually think this PBR thing has, I feel like we might even be doing a little bit of a disservice if we were to, you know, just stick in a line here. I think that this actually is something we, you know, that could really be beneficial to look at if we were to move to that. Maybe you know, a longer form, you know, dedicated avenue to pursue on this with a deeper communication on the topic exclusively, just might be better from a policy perspective. But again, I don't oppose what you're saying, and you know, if we want to shoehorn in a line, I suppose I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just think we could probably do a better job having PBR stand on its own.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that if you flip it and then treat the PBR as a separate subject matter, and then we can advocate for that as a commission, as a town, and then we can use the storm response as part of the justification for PBR. We could say that, you know, we've had some pretty bad experiences with recent storms over the last 5 years, and maybe PBR is a way to, because here's a quote, it says, a good use of PBR is to help utilities do valuable things like investing in grid modernization. Well, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know what amount of investment Eversource is making in grid modernization. I mean, I just can't speak to that. Maybe Ryan knows, but
yeah, I think Ryan's wanting to speak.
So as far as modernization, Eversource is taking every opportunity that they can to do those capital type projects because they're guaranteed return on their investment. So they spend $100 million, they get $120 million back guaranteed, whatever. So they have actually done a lot. But I mean, as a worker there, we're seeing that the traditional maintenance programs are now not as prioritized because capital projects with the guaranteed return are the priority for the company. Ever since NSTAR bought them out and they became Eversource, they've invested hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, but it's all in, I mean, it has made improvements, which is why our grid is honestly, as much as we don't like to see the improvements, it's very reliable. You know, the storms notwithstanding when all the lines go down, but with the exception of the storms, we don't lose power. But now we're getting to the point where older equipment is starting to fail because they're not incentivized to maintain the equipment they have. They can let it fail, and now instead of spending any of their money, once it's failed, it can then be replaced under a capital project as a modernization attempt, and they get that guaranteed return from the state. So, I mean, I see it has definitely made improvements. Our reliability is definitely increased, but we see how they use that purely to print the money, and how they're not handling stuff like maintenance items are really not a big concern anymore. And I mean, we as workers there are not a fan of that because we just have to wait till things fail because they don't want to fix them.
Yeah. Would PBR help?
And I think the dangers of monopolies there, man, you know, you give them all the power and there's not a whole lot of oversight. And I would like more oversight personally. I don't think Pura does much. You know, it seems like, I mean, I don't think Eversource should be able to lobby Pura for anything. It should be a separate investigative body that makes its own rulings and determinations. Why would we allow lobbyists to pitch things to Pura and then Pura to rule on those things? You know, that doesn't seem to make sense to me. But
and why should they be able to take ratepayers' money and use it for lobbyists at the Capitol with the politicians?
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know.
Well, let's get back to the letter. Shall we let Chris Smith mail the letter? And maybe it's not Chris that mails it. Ann can get it. We should put it on town letterhead.
One thing I'd like to add, I know we're discussing whether or not to split it into two separate issues. I don't see why we can't hammer them on both counts. Throw the line in there that Dan wants to do, and bring it up there, and then bring it up again separately in a more comprehensive PBR-based thing. Hit them. I mean, who knows how much impact either one will have. So I think the more often and the more comprehensive we send things, the better, personally.
Get it into the discussion.
What's that?
What's that there?
To kind of get it into the discussion, and more different places you can bring something up, the better, it seems. I don't.
So then if that's the case, just so we know what we're talking about, then are you suggesting that in the very last line, should Pura concur that Eversource was ill-prepared, the Cheshire Energy Commission urges a unanimous rejection of any cost recovery request by Eversource on the backs of ratepayers. Furthermore, we suggest a careful consideration of reforming the regulatory structure. You know, I guess that's where I struggle with trying to fit it in here.
Dan, can you help him with that? Can you wordsmith that last sentence so that you can?
Well, I think Chris's point is that, you know, your last sentence, you want the largest impact and you want to hit home on your big point. So what if the big point is that we don't want to foot that bill, then I wouldn't put it there.
Where would you put it? I don't have a copy of that letter right in front of me here, but I mean, I could go either way. I could see it. I could see the benefits of having a link, but not necessarily a strong, just, you know, like a little hint, like we are aware that, you know, 17 other states in the country are using PBR, which, you know, may be an advantage here in Connecticut, and we urge Pura to consider that model for the Eversource, you know, territory. Or
I guess it could be worded something about in the future. I mean, it's not going to be used for this storm, but in the future, hopefully Pura will be looking at these things.
What about
I kind of like that because it's a constructive recommendation. So
what about what I'm trying to do? Here's my challenge: is I think that everything that leads up to the conclusion is really focused on the storm, and so that's, I think, why I was struggling to fit it in here. I'm wondering then if in the third paragraph, right after the first sentence, so it reads blah blah blah. I'm sorry, after the second sentence, ratepayers in Cheshire and across the state already pay among the highest rates in the continental United States for our energy, while Eversource shareholders enjoyed a nearly 1/3 increase in net profits during 2020. We urge. Yeah, see, I'm just struggling to find where it fits because I think it just kind of disrupts that flow. It's kind of trying to make the points that leads to the ask that we suggest that they're. Yeah, I'm not seeing where it fits, where it doesn't kind of stick out like just kind of almost like an afterthought.
right.
Again, Dan, please don't get me wrong. I fully support what you're saying. I don't know how we do it without a full-scale rewrite.
Chris, the letter is not a literary graded thing, right? We're trying to present them the things we want. Who cares if it doesn't flow nicely? I mean, you know, and one point I'd like to make there. Last I looked, which was not very long ago, we pay the highest rates in the continental United States. We're only third after Hawaii and Alaska, which are obviously not continental.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like we said earlier, Eversource has got 16 different reasons why that's the case, and you can argue any one of them, but it is what it is. We are paying the highest rates in the country. I don't know if PBR what effect that would have on rates. Would it lower rates? Would it
Seems that every state that gets an ISO, which we're under ISO New England, an independent system operator, it's supposed a nonprofit that's supposed to find us the cheapest power. From my experience talking to other states as in other transmission operators, everybody that's under an ISO pays more than the people that do not have an ISO that finds them the cheapest power. And so when you deregulate and have that freedom of choice, it seems it's making things more expensive. California has one. We have one. The Pacific Northwest has one. And there's a bunch of them. And it seems like we pay more than the places that don't.
Yeah. You know what? All I can say is, you can't talk about this all night. Dan and Chris, if you can put this together and make it flow and fit in nicely, fine. I think that letter should go out tomorrow. So if you can do it, you know, sometime this time tomorrow and get that ready. Otherwise, I mean, if we can't make it happen.
With like one edit of the adding in something about the sufficient supervision of the storm response as one of the.
I don't have an objection to that.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, David.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I thought the purpose of the letter was to highlight the fact that Eversource mismanaged the project. Therefore, they should share in the costs rather than just pass it on to the rate payers. Isn't that the major point?
That's the major point. I think the question is, better stated, if they were responsible, then they should not charge the ratepayers. And there's an investigation going on that.
Well, we'll just assume they are responsible. How's that?
I don't know if you can assume that, though. That's like you know, you got to do due diligence. I mean, they maybe are, maybe they're not. I don't know. Who knows? I'm not conducting the investigation, but.
So,
like I said last
parliamentary inquiry. If Dan and I were to work offline to try to you know, kind of shoehorn this line in, you know, in an appropriate place to make sure it flows, does this need to come back to the commission for approval? Can we email it around? Does that count as no? I mean, how does
you would have to technically have a meeting. Either you'd have to leave here with a motion to approve the letter as it stands with in a similar fashion to you would the minutes from the previous meeting. You have to leave here with somebody making a motion to approve the letter as discussed, barring a change, administrative change in agreement by Chris and Dan Knutson. You'd have to have a motion. Otherwise, you'd have to come back, have a special meeting with a quorum. It would have to be noticed, and you would have to have a vote at that point to approve the finalized letter.
Yeah, I would then suggest to make it simple that we keep them separate. We all have seen the letter as written by Chris. We don't want to have to come back next month or another meeting, or I would say we go with what Chris says. And
I concur with that. I concur with that because I hate to, you know, I'm uncomfortable proving something that someone's going to edit and send out, you know, my name on it.
So with that in mind, Dan, why don't you and I connect this week and maybe we kind of put our heads together on a more formalized, you know, something to bring back to this commission next month.
I don't want to wait. I don't think we should be waiting another month. No.
I'm saying on PBR, a separate thing.
On PBR. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So send the one that you've got written that we've all seen. We can approve that. Somebody can make a motion to accept accept that, and then
with the one edit, right?
No edits.
Or just the way it is now.
The way it is now.
Okay, I wanted to add the something about the storm response in there, but
the supervision, that's the supervision piece, right?
Yeah.
That's where you said reliable grid to deliver power to its customers, including reasonable and necessary costs associated with repair, upkeep, storm preparation, response, supervision, and infrastructure improvements.
Where are you at? Responsible for preparation.
What, is it really that important to put supervision in there? we've already been talking about this for a month. Why don't we just let it rip, and then you can come back.
Something I talked about last month, actually, too.
You did?
I think it's a big cost. A big part of the cost is whether you properly supervise the all the.
How do you know they didn't supervise?
All the crews that are working.
How do you're saying that they didn't properly supervise, and they're going to say they did, and it's not up for us to say they did or they didn't. That's the third party investigator is going to determine that. I mean, how do you? I don't think that we can say that they were not supervising properly. How do we know? I saw 2 crews working in my area. Both of them waited 4 hours for somebody from Eversource to come by and tell them it was okay to work. Safety.
Yes,
safety. It's a safety thing.
And a very expensive. That is, are they proper? Are they able to supervise? I mean, that's Eversource's job.
And they're going to say yes, they are able to supervise. Ryan will attest to that. They're supervisors. They do. I mean, you can question the quality of their supervision, I suppose, but then it's your word against theirs. How do you know if you could have done a better job?
I can tell you, we had procedural changes about a year ago that have drastically slowed down workflow. So something is supposed to be switched out at 8 o'clock. It's not getting switched out till noon, 1 o'clock, but the people that are there to do the work show up at 8 o'clock. So that's Eversource's procedural changes that they wanted to do for work processes. And now those people may have been told to be there at 8 o'clock to be ready to work. And yet, I mean, it's not, the work isn't ready for them. And that's purely a procedural change by Eversource that we have fought with our union, and it's still being fought. And the linemen, the electricians, the operators have all fought that. That came straight from the top.
Why would they do that, Ryan?
They were having some issues, safety issues, and their thoughts on how to fix that were to make us do everything one step at a time and complete a completely new document on how we do everything. And it's been a disaster. We hate it. It's made everything terribly slow. So we used to switch mostly during the day. We switch 24 hours a day now. Like we take stuff out. We switch at 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. We switch all morning, all day, all night. And there's drastic revisions to that policy coming out soon. But it's really changed how things work. So while you may see people waiting there for 4 hours, I've made people wait for 12 hours because I can't get them the work that they're supposed to have. So I don't know that you can hold that. I mean, it is Eversource's fault, but I'm not sure that it's supervision's fault because they showed up probably where they were told to. Just, my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and then, who knows the real reason why? I mean, I can't imagine Eversource is doing something intentionally stupid. They got to have a reason. Now,
do they have enough manpower to supervise those outside crews that come in?
I don't know. Who knows?
If they don't, then
no. But if they don't, yes. But who knows? You're asking the question, and the investigators got to determine that, right?
And why shouldn't we bring up a question that they should be investigating? I thought that's the purpose of the letter.
No, the letter essentially concludes by saying, if the investigation discloses that they were ill-prepared, negligent, at fault in some way, that the ratepayers shouldn't pay. That's what I mean. That's this. You could basically jump to the bottom line and say that's it. All the other stuff is sort of like statement of what we think is fact. But if Eversource is responsible for delays, poor supervision, poor communication, all of that, then they need to foot the bill. But like who said, Ryan said earlier, they would never make a statement to their stakeholders if they didn't think that they were really going to get what they wanted.
Because they've always gotten what they wanted.
Huh?
But it you're giving Pura trying to give him a backbone. That's what I see the purpose of the letter. You're saying, you know, don't just bend over for him.
I don't know.
So,
I don't know what...
Dan, if I could, I think let's try to hammer this out really quickly. I guess I'm unclear as to where you want to insert it. So perhaps you should articulate that, and then we could, you know, yay or nay on editing the letter. And if that passes, we'll edit it. If it doesn't, we'll do the motion to approve it as is. Sure. But I think so if you could just articulate where you want to put it and what it reads.
Right after poor preparation and a comma, supervision of storm response. And
yeah, I'm sorry, which paragraph?
What's that?
I'm sorry, can you direct me to the line?
Okay. So, it's the second to last sentence.
Yeah. However, the ratepayer should not be held responsible
for costs that in any way are attributable to the utilities continued alleged poor preparation, comma, supervision of storm response, and planning for forecasted severe weather events like Tropical Storm Isaiah.
I have no.
So I'm assuming that's a motion to amend the letter. Is that right,
Second.
Mr. Chairman? No, I got it.
All right, Dan's making the motion to add what he just said into the letter in a specific spot that Chris, you know where he wants to put it, right?
Yes.
All right, tell us where he wants to put it.
That is in the second to last line that currently reads, however, the ratepayer should not be held responsible for costs that in any way are attributable to the utilities continued alleged poor preparation and planning for forecasted severe weather events like Tropical Storm Isaias. What Dan's motion is to edit that to read, should not be held responsible for costs that in any way are attributable to the utilities continued alleged poor preparation, supervision, and planning for forecasted severe weather events. So it's really just adding those two words. Is that correct, Dan?
4 words, supervision of storm response.
Supervision of storm response.
Oh.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't the legislature already taking up things to try to force PURA to be more hands-on?
They did.
Yes.
Well, I think right now, Mr. Chairman, so that was a motion. Was that seconded by anybody?
I'll second it.
Walt, do you understand what he wants to do so that you feel comfortable in?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah, fine.
So any further discussion on this? All in favor? Of all, I guess the question would be all in favor of making that amendment to the letter, and then Chris will do that, and then having Ann put it on town letterhead and sending it off.
Works for me.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Aye.
Yes.
Raise. Good.
Aye.
Okay. All right. And then separately, and it's not part of the motion or anything, Dan and Chris can work together to formulate what we want to do with PBR. Or is it PBR?
Yeah, just think of the beer.
Chris, if you need any help with that, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be glad to assist you if I can.
Sure. I mean, it's Dan's idea, but I'm happy to participate. And as long as we don't have more than 3 of us, we no more than 3 of us can meet at a time unless it's properly noticed. So if you'd like to join that, we got to lock everybody else out.
And it only takes, I just need 24 hours to notice the meeting and then post everything. So
no, I think that, you know, keeping the group smaller will probably be more effective. So yeah, Dan, Chris, and was there somebody else that wanted to pitch
I'm
in?
willing to help if you need any help.
Okay, Dan, Chris, and Ryan. Ryan can certainly provide input directly from Eversource, or as a
I don't speak for Eversource.
I mean, I know he does it, but he's got the exposure and experience of working in that realm. I guess there was something else that it's probably on the agenda somewhere, but no, George left again.
I'm here.
Dave Gavin, are you awake?
Yeah, I'm awake. I don't think you're getting my video though, are you?
No, you're frozen.
Yeah, I can't unfreeze it. I've tried about everything.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'm just listening a lot.
It's a
another thing that Chris was going to do was try to put together this little subcommittee to look at the portfolio manager database and develop new energy savings and cost savings opportunities, right?
Yes, and I was I've abdicated that responsibility over the last month accidentally. I think I got a late start on that, but I'm still happy to do that. I think it was Dave Gavin, you, Mr. Chairman, and myself. We're going to try to find some time, which we just simply didn't do this the last month, and I take that responsibility. Happy to find time to do that.
Okay, so you're still willing to head that up, right?
I am, unless there's another volunteer.
No, let's not change horses. So you'll take that on, and then there will be no more than 3 people, so we don't have to worry about all the notifications and minutes and all that. But Dave would be a good member of that group because he's got a lot of experience with the portfolio manager and also developing other energy projects. That would be good. And then, we could always bring in somebody else and say, I could drop out and Walt can jump in. I mean, we could do that, but we need a leader. And I think if you volunteered to do that last month or the month before, and you're still willing to do that, that would be good.
Yep.
Yeah, I might add, when we had our major energy saving project, there was a lot of background information fed into that as far as I think there were probably 150 various items identified for possible improvement by the company that did. I forget what's the name of that company again?
Amoresco.
Amoresco, right? Yeah. So I mean, there's a document. It's probably on file somewhere that identifies every opportunity they found within the town of Cheshire. Almost, there's like 150, 170. Not all of those things were acted on, and they were scored out and shown how much energy you could save, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, that would be a good document for the group to review again.
Yep.
And
okay, well,
I've got a copy of it. I'm sure there's a copy of it in the town somewhere.
Well, I'm sure Dan can get his hands on. That's the performance contract.
Yeah, I just jotted down a note. I would say that if you formalize a subcommittee of sorts and you establish the subcommittee with a group of 4 individuals and you were to meet as a group of 4 individuals, regardless of the number for a quorum for the overall commission, any number of such 4-person group that would meet together would technically be a meeting of a subcommittee in which it would have to be noticed. Ann and I could look to see whether or not a group of that size could meet at the town hall, in the sense as to not have the need for a Zoom meeting of sorts, to have somebody host a Zoom meeting, so on and so forth, to where you could have a meeting in person. It could be noticed appropriately, and you could meet as a full subcommittee that you've established. So we can get you a little bit more information. I don't know, Chris, if you want me to communicate with Chris on what that requirement is, and how that would work. But once you establish a subcommittee, what Chris and Dan are looking to do is just kind of communicate regarding a letter individually. That's not really a subcommittee of sorts. That's just them preparing something to be presented at a later point to the overall commission. Yeah. But again, the establishment of a subcommittee with an inherent goal would have to be noticed as such.
If the subcommittee had 4, but if it had 3, it would not, right? A subcommittee of 3 would not need any formal notification.
If you establish a subcommittee, any number, it could be 2, 3, 4. If you establish the committee of any number, you meet the quorum requirements if it's 2 people and you have 2 people show up.
I don't know about that, but if that's true, we'll abide. But I'm under the impression that if it's not a quorum, there's no need for notification or minutes or whatever.
Right, as the full commission. But if you create a subcommittee and your subcommittee meets with any of the numbers, I'll get you the appropriate language and just get the clarifications on that.
We'll follow up on that.
Could be a study group.
Yeah,
there you go, Dave.
We don't have to call it a subcommittee. We just call it a couple of people getting together, sharing some.
But again, if you had it in person, just with the lower numbers, if you had a group of 3 or 4, we might be able to even accommodate that at the town hall as a smaller group if there's rooms available.
Yeah, or we could all start our own Zoom meetings. I mean, I could.
They'd have to be recorded,
and you have to issue minutes.
No, if it's all right, okay. We'll do a little research on that.
There's all sorts of new rules these days with the meetings.
So am I waiting to organize the 3 of us until I hear from you, Dan? Is that what's going on?
Ann and I will talk to the town manager's office in the next day or 2, and we'll see what we can't get you for additional information.
Well, I'm glad that I missed my responsibility last month to pull.
That was by device, right, Chris?
Dan, we did talk to Arnett and George about that. And I think the difference between what you're saying is that if you formally create the subcommittee is really the difference there.
To what they did last month at the meeting.
Right, but if a couple of guys got together and did something, then you're right. It doesn't have to be noticed. But that's the difference if you're formally creating.
Okay,
that.
so there won't be. It'll just be a couple of guys over a beer
together for a cup of coffee,
discussing what some ideas with Dave, and maybe I'll join.
That's right.
One time Walt will come in. We'll get around it somehow. It's got to be easy to do, otherwise it won't get done.
I think lunch is on you, Rich.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So I need a motion to adjourn so I can go watch the basketball game. Okay. Chris is saying it, and Dan is, or Walt. Walt, you want to second that, right? All in favor?
Can I bring up one other thing real quick?
Yeah.
So it maybe not right with the solar opportunities that we're talking about, but I think another good thing to look at might be a microgrid opportunity or an island opportunity, just so that there was an area of the town that did have power during a storm.
You want that around your house, Dan?
We talked about microgrids a couple of years ago, and we couldn't come up with a suitable location, but
the pool wouldn't work.
You might look to speak to emergency operations, Jack Kasner, fire chief, and maybe work to locate something like that around the established shelters that would be in place if there was an emergency of the nature.
Yeah, I know that Amorisco looked at the main fire station, the senior center, and then you had the grocery store and the banks, and those are like, they're. And of course, the police station is a little bit too far away, but those are areas of what are we looking for? In a microgrid, it's not just the generation of power, but you're trying to keep services available for the public, right? So banking, grocery store, the senior center, the fire department.
That's like on that block of Maple Avenue. Over to.
You get the Vic House too if you needed to go over and have a few pops. Okay, listen, I got to run. So, let's. Are you waving goodbye? You're making.
I second the motion to adjourn, and then I'm voting to adjourn.
Thank you very much.